Welcome back to season 6 of Sista Brunch. This is the only podcast that shares the stories of Black women and gender expansive people thriving in film, TV, and media. I'm your host, Fanshen Cox.
And I'm your co-host, Shawn Pipkin-West. And today's guest I'm very excited about, Sista Brunch. We have been waiting to have her on this podcast for about 2 seasons, and we finally made it happen. She's been so busy, but now we have her. She was raised in New Jersey. And as a theater kid, she performed with her local theater company until the end of high school. She majored in communications and Africana studies, acting. Behind the scenes, she's worked on such critically acclaimed award-winning shows as Mad Men, Raising Dion, Free Shawn, and she High on the Hog, a documentary on Netflix. And she is an Emmy winner, a Gracie winner, and she has 3, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 Telly Awards.
3, yeah.
3. Yes. And she's also works in the community helping empower and people of color in this business. So she has an organization called the Hivemind Unified that we're going to talk a little bit about. So I'm going to stop talking right now. Sista Brunch family, let's welcome.
But wait.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, we're gonna welcome her. Yeah, because I was gonna say maybe we go back and say each of those awards, and then she pulls them out, and we can actually see them on the video.
You know what? Yes.
Right? Should we do that? Should we just? So you said an Emmy. So
okay, here she is.
Yeah,
look at her. She's so shiny. She's
pretty.
I do polish her. I polish her. Okay.
Oh yes.
Yes. And your Gracie Award.
Yes, please.
Here she is in all her power.
Oh,
yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And for our wonderful listeners, just so you all know that Shrlyn won the Gracie Award after First Lady Michelle Obama won her Gracie Award. So I just want you guys to know, everyone to know the company that we have, the guests, the caliber of guests we have here.
Truly, yes.
Oh,
and you've won 3 Tellys, but just show us what a Telly looks like.
3 Tellys. This
Telly
is
Award.
This is my goal.
Yay!
That's a beautiful.
And
my goodness!
And can you? Everyone knows what an Emmy is. You also are nominated for NAACP Image Awards.
Yes,
your work.
I'm gonna get one of those. I'm gonna get it.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yes, you will.
But can you tell us what the Telly and the Gracie Awards, what the achievement is for that?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Gracie is given by the Alliance for Women in Media, and they're an amazing organization that's like run by women, and so all of their nominations and awards are for women who are doing content, documentaries, features, performances by women for women. It's like all girl power organization, and it was a really wonderful experience to take that home. The docuseries that won that was a 5-piece docuseries, they're shorts about women of color in different places and different spaces in their life, and code switching and what that meant for them, who they were at home versus who they were in the world. And so, really fortunate and happy that the Gracies were, recognized me and my amazing team, and my DP, my director, my editor, my line producer were also all women. All first generation women, that came alongside me to tell this story. So that was a really awesome experience. And the Telly Awards, I'm not even gonna lie to you, who gives them? I'm not sure, but
we'll find out. It'll be in the show notes.
Yes, it'll be in the show notes.
Yes, that's right. Yes, we will absolutely
be in the show notes. But they have they've been around for a long time, and they honor digital actors, docs, feature. They do it runs the gamut. And so I actually won 2 Tellys for that same project and 1 Telly for
Yes.
the PBS doc that I worked on, the Paul R. Williams documentary film. So the first Telly came a couple of years ago, and the last 2 Tellys more recently. So again, another blessing. Very, very happy.
Yes, yes.
Proud.
Well deserved.
And
And
do
the
you
Emmy, did we get the Emmy story? What's the Emmy for?
Oh, so the Emmy is for the Paul Williams film, the
Oh, for
PBS
the
film.
yes.
So that is a really incredible story because it was my first documentary. I started out in scripted. That's how I met Shawn. So we go back.
Yay.
So started out in scripted, and this was my first documentary, and had no expectations really. It's a story about a Black man, an architect based out of Los Angeles, who really set the tone for LA and the design of LA and what it looked like, and just really had a passion for telling the story. And in the end, it took home an Emmy. Like, it just was a very like what kind of moment, but also, yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Paul R. Williams story is, especially for California, like Los Angeles, like look him up, everybody.
Please.
Watch the
Okay.
documentary. It is
Yes.
mind-blowing
We
what this
will.
man was able to do being a Black man in the United States and what he was able to accomplish
Yes,
as
this
an
is
architect. It's
yes, a
just
Black man in the 20s and 30s that was really setting the tone for LA, and then later on was designing homes for Frank Sinatra and Lucille Ball. Like, so many how powered people were going to this Black man to design their homes. And, he wasn't allowed to be their neighbor, but he could design their homes. So it's a really dynamic story. And I
yes.
worked with 2 dynamic women on that film as well. And I'm so honored to have worked with them. They were really, really incredible. And, in the end, after many years of like working on the project, we were able to take the Emmy home. So that was exciting. Yeah.
Very
Okay, so
nice.
you've already planted some seeds for us on our first question because we like to dig into your journey. You planted
Okay.
some seeds around the 2 of you met back when you were in scripted at first. And sounds like now a lot of your focus has been on documentary, right? And then we also know because before we started the show in the green room, we talked a little bit about the pronunciation of your last name because you're of Haitian descent, or you are Haitian, and you talked also about how some of the people you worked with are first generation, and so it sounds like that all comes to play in your story as well. So take us as far back as you'd
Yes.
like to.
Yes. So I'm a first gen Haitian kid that was born in Brooklyn, and family moved to New Jersey when I was really young, and also put me in like theater classes and dance classes, when I was young, to kind of keep me busy. But it turned out I really took to it. I
Mm.
jokingly kind of tell my mom that she let TV raise me because I was an only child for a really long time. So she would place me in front of the TV and I'd watch it for hours and not bother her. She could cook and clean and do all the things that she needed to do. So I became obsessed with shows and like theme songs and all of that, and really just took a liking to it, but never really thought that I could be in that mix at all. So as a kid, did my plays, did my recitals, did all of the things. And then when it was time to go to college, I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, New Brunswick campus. And I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna act. I'm gonna be an actor, but I have to be a good first gen kid and
Mhm.
major in a science though, because
Mhm. Got that backup. You make the
you
parents happy and feel comfortable, and
well, technically, the science, the acting was going to be the backup, because for the foreigners, and I think all of my African, Caribbean, even Asian, family will understand when I say there is a very short list of career options. Okay,
yes, yes,
and the arts,
yes. Do
creative,
not, they're not.
are not in
Yes.
that. They're just, it's like what? So, um, I think they knew I liked it, but they just still thought of it as a hobby, and I never
Okay.
really crossed more
Yeah.
than that. Started
Yeah.
college 2 years into my bio major. I was like, ooh, I am not gonna make it. Like,
You
this is
couldn't even
oof.
act your way out of those
What?
classes. Right?
There,
Yeah, that's how.
I thought I was giving my best performance, and that's what was
Yes,
sad. I
yes,
was like,
right, right, right,
I am doing the
right.
best that I can here and still not making it. Like it was a little tough.
Mm,
And so I said, you know what? I'm going to change majors. I'm going to be a communication major.
mm,
Rutgers, though it's an excellent school, didn't have like a media kind of study. So communication was like the big umbrella that I could kind of go under and keep my acting minor, my Africana studies minor, and like keep pushing. So because I was 2 years behind, I was like, all right, summer classes, like just because we got to get out of here. So so finish with that. Once I got into communication though, I feel like I excelled. Like my brain just like it just made sense. The papers that I wrote made sense. Like what I was reading made
mm,
sense. Like my perspective on
yes.
things made sense. So it all kind of started to come together. And there was some point in college where I realized like, oh, you can make money behind the camera. Like, how many people are back there? Like, I don't actually have to do the work of being an actor, though I love the craft and respect it. Now I'm so far removed from it. But at the time, I was like, yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it's really cool. Um, but if I don't have to, like, and I could do this other thing and I could
Mhm,
tie my managerial skills, my
mhm,
managerial
mhm.
abilities. I'm the eldest. If that tells you enough. Putting it all
Yes.
together of like how to organize, how to get things done, how to marry my creativity with getting that done. And I was like, okay, I think behind the camera is where it's at. But I graduated into, a recession. Sounds familiar. Hello, repeat the
Mm,
story.
mm.
Um, so
Yes.
housing market crashed, couldn't get a job to save my life, like was like hoping to intern somewhere, but I'd already graduated, couldn't get any credit, so it just wasn't going to happen. Ended up getting a job at NBA Entertainment, NBA TV, which has a huge
Mm,
office in New Jersey. And so when you went to like uh, you know, Nets.com, Lakers.com. There would be
mhm,
these
mhm.
ads placed on the side of the homepage. I did that. That was me.
Yes,
hmm
yes.
Fancy. Um,
Very fancy.
so started out with that, and then
Mm,
after a couple of months, just because I like it was nice there. It was great, but it wasn't really the thing that I wanted to do. It wasn't. So I was like, okay, I've got to move on. So I applied to grad school. I wanted to go to film school. And I applied to 3 schools, only got into one. And that was Syracuse University.
yes.
So went to film school at Syracuse. And I think that really changed things for me in the sense that their curriculum was really something I mean, did not experience at Rutgers, did not
Mm,
have like, so this is the first time I'm really seeing camera equipment and sound equipment and, like trying to understand what putting a script together is like.
mm,
And,
mm.
working with classmates on like, okay, so what's our story? And like, what are we doing? And how long is this? That's where I discovered that editing is not my gifting, and that's fine. We got to move on.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Stuff like that.
Other people
So
are good at that. You pass that work on to them, right?
pass that right on.
Yes.
Um, absolutely let that go. And then was very fortunate. So I did the accelerated program at Syracuse. They have a 1-year program. So what they
Oh,
teach their film
wow.
students in 4 years, they teach their master students in one.
Oh my goodness.
So it's an intensive. And it
I'll bet.
was a lot. And one of the classes that I took there was a television production course, and the goal of the class was to create your own television show. So the class divided
Wow.
into what a set would be like. So we had our designers, like our production designers, we had our directors, we had our writers. And by then I had decided that I think, producing is my spot. I feel like that's really
Okay.
it. So I had joined the producing team. We had, come up with the show, shot Syracuse, New York for LA. Interesting. Anyways, fun, kind of stuff. Ended up submitting that show to the student Emmys and won that year.
Yes.
And that is what kind of started it all in a way.
Wow.
And
That validation,
that
right? Is like,
validation,
yes, yes.
it was really, really great, I think. And
What
they
was the
have a,
show? I have to know what
oh
what
boy.
was the show you made?
So it was called Limelight, and it was about a child star transitioning into becoming an adult star, and
Wow.
the industry taking her more seriously as an actor. So it followed
Hmm.
like her and her manager, and are there shady people in her camp trying to set her up because she's like, just here for the money, or do we take her seriously as an
Mm-hmm.
actor?
Hmm.
So, so it was like, it was that story. And so when we submitted it and won, I remember I was in class and I got, my phone is ringing. I see this Los Angeles number and I was like, I don't know nobody out there. And I was like, oh my God. So, ran outside the class, accept the phone call. And I was like, what? This is really great, really, really exciting. And they have a ceremony just like the adult Emmy, the big Emmys.
Amazing. Yes.
So flew to LA for the first time. I was able to bring my parents, my family, with
Oh,
me so that they can see that moment. And I think not only was it validating for me, but I think it settled in like my mom's mind, like, oh,
yeah.
this can happen. Like, this is a real thing. Like, I can see who's in
Mm,
the room, and there were celebrities in the room and all of that. So
yes.
I think it really clicked, like, okay, um, all right, you could do this. And then the same year, I won the Emmys Foundation internship program. And they're separate
Wow.
application processes. Like, they do work separate and different, but I was very fortunate to get both in the same summer, the same
Yeah,
year.
you know what? You've
So
said fortunate a couple times. You've said it about the ones that are in your home. We didn't even know when we talked about Emmys that you started getting an Emmy back when you were a student. I think
that
we
one's in
gonna
the
say
house somewhere too, but
this is more than fortune. We just gonna say that this is a whole lot more than
Speak it,
fortune, and we
Fanshen.
want.
Speak
I
it.
mean, we want our listeners to know. This is not like this is not luck.
This
This
is
is hard
talent.
work
This is hard
and
yes.
work.
talent.
Yes.
So we just gonna say
Well,
that.
I do
Yes.
talk to Shawn. I'd be like, I said, Shawn, what, my friend Jesus, he also be in the mix a lot. I just, so I am blessed. I am blessed. I give my friend Jesus
Okay.
all the
Yes.
credit. But yes, there is absolutely talent and hard work and
Yes.
all of that, which I'm
Yes.
sure we'll get to. But yeah, so I got
Yeah.
the internship and that summer I found out and moved from the East Coast in 7 days, like packed all my
Wow.
bags, moved over, didn't have a car, like called a friend of mine who I graduated from film school with, who knew she was going to be in LA. So she was already planted there. And, and was like, can I stay with you for a little bit until I figure like life out? And interned on Mad Men. I was the producer's intern on Mad Men at the peak of Mad
Wow.
Men.
Oh
So
my goodness.
that was really, really incredible to kind of see.
Hi, this is Shawn Pipkin-West. Thank you so much for supporting our podcast by following us on IG at Sista Brunch Podcast and engaging with our posts. Did you know you can also see our guests' lovely faces on the video version of the podcast on youtube.com/Trujulo Media. That's Trujulo Media, TRUJULOMEDIA, Trujulo Media. All right, let's get back to our interview with Shirlyn Cesar.
How did you get that? Was it, I mean, obvious, I shouldn't say that because we just said, right? It's not just fortune. It's people must have been noticing you. I mean, here you have two connections to the Emmys just as you're finishing grad school already, right? And they were, as you said, separate processes, right? So did you, I presume you had people looking out for you. How did you get Mad Men? How did that
So,
happen?
you know what? I will say this for those listening, because I think it is important. And I don't really say it all that often, but I had applied for that program twice and I got in the second time.
Yes,
So
thank you. Yes,
the
sometimes. Yep.
sometimes you just got to keep at it. And the
Hmm.
first time I applied, I was still an undergrad, and and after getting in, I understood why I didn't get accepted the first time. I was like, oh,
Okay.
I see why. They
Yeah,
would not,
yeah.
they didn't let me in the first time. So when I tried the second time, I did, going to film school and being at Syracuse and the connections that Syracuse did have, my professor had won an Emmy, so I could just ask him to write me a recommendation. So that
Yes.
helps, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie,
Yes.
like that does help.
Hmm.
So I did have excellent recommendations, and
Great. Great.
what's very interesting, which it's funny, I'm kind of circling back to this now at the point of like my journey in entertainment, but at the time I was very honest in my interview. I said that I wanted to work on Black stories. I really enjoyed
Yes.
watching these kind of shows when I was growing up, and I just enjoyed it, and I wanted to be part of the resurgence of it, because at the time that was like the dip where there was like no Black shows on.
Mm.
I was like, I want to be part of the resurgence of it. And I really, and I love TV, like pick me, right? And I was just like, okay, cool, we'll see what happens. And then not only to get on Mad Men, but obviously for anyone who's seen Mad Men, Mad Men is an incredibly white show. Um,
Yeah.
so
How
Until
later,
was that?
Tiana came on.
right,
I
exactly.
said,
And she's a friend in my head. I don't know her at all, but in my
Yeah.
head, she's my friend. I think she's so
Every time
beautiful.
it's the only one. That's our friend. It's
That's our
like,
friend. Like, I want her to
that's our
play me in
friend.
in my movie in my life. I don't know, but and I was there right before she got hired, so I really didn't see anyone else.
Mm.
Like,
Wow.
while I was there, and my supervisor later on had admitted to me that she almost didn't pick me just because my response was in saying like, hey, I want to work on Black content. She was like, this is the wrong show.
She's
But
like, yeah.
everything else about her is great. And luckily, I
Okay.
had an advocate at the foundation that probably, since I had won the award previously, was like, just pick her, trust me. And there we
Mm,
go.
nice.
there we
Nice.
go.
Nice.
There we
Wow.
go.
So Shrlyn, so from Mad Men, so
Hmm.
was your next was the next thing where I met you on? Well, because I do want to talk about how I met you.
That
You were working
transition.
with Mar Brockakil,
Hmm.
Black Story, the pilot of Being Mary Jane.
Oh
Hmm.
my
And
goodness.
just so our listeners that don't know, at that time, the only other show in the United States where there was a Black female lead was Scandal with Kerry Washington. So
Mm.
this was the second like groundbreaking show where there was a Black female lead,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that's where I met Shirlyn. And then I knew, I was like, oh, she's going places. She was so on it, and she was, and what the thing that
I was
really
so
like
green.
got, but you know what? It
What did you
doesn't
do
matter
on
if
being
you're green.
Mary Jane? What was your role on it?
So I was assistant to the showrunner. So
Amazing.
prior to
Okay.
that, I was an office PA, because I decided that, look, I want to be a producer. I know I want to produce. So I need to stick by the producers, and they're in the office. That's where their meetings are held.
Mm,
That's
mm,
where I could eavesdrop on most of their conversations. Like, once they're on set and we're rolling, they talk a little less, so I can't hear that anyway.
mm.
And I had been
That's smart.
spoiled by my Mad Men experience, because I was an Emmy intern, and I'll always big up that program. I think it was really, really amazing, for anyone, for the listeners. But part of being the Emmy intern meant that I had to shadow the associate producer and co-EP of the show. So I was on tech scouts. I was scouting. I
Mm-hmm.
was in
Mm-hmm.
table reads. I was
Wow.
in the director's meeting. So literally producer, director, me, like, hello. So just imagine
Yes.
like little old intern. They're like, who's that?
Just
Who's that
sucking it
girl?
all
Just
in. You were like
yeah.
writing it down.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. So I was
Yes.
kind of spoiled by
Amazing.
that. So I was just like, oh, this is where it happened. So I need to stick close to this. So,
Okay.
um, you know, got a few PA jobs, and then rolled into this assistant job where I met Shawn, which was, really great. And then on that particular project, like before getting to set and meeting Shawn, of just watching the casting process and how that goes, and the
Mm.
process of auditioning. I had not seen that up close yet. And then I was in LA at the time and had flown to Atlanta, and I was super green. I was definitely trying my best, but still hardworking, still really focused, still like notebook in hand, still writing everything down. Like my mind was always like, okay, now it's 7 p.m. We need to do this. We need to do that. Like really, really trying my best. And I think I connected with Shawn because I also, it was a pilot. Pilots can get a little funky. Things just happen. And so Shawn and I would just be kikiing and cackling.
I love it.
In the back somewhere. And then we found out we didn't live that far from each other at the time. Like, we were literally like
in
a couple
LA,
blocks
yeah,
away from each
because
other
we
in
were
LA.
shooting.
Okay.
Yeah, we were shooting in Atlanta, and yes, and
Oh,
so
okay. So then when you got
yeah.
home after
Yes.
it, you were like, wait,
Yes.
we're neighbors.
Yes.
Meant to be.
Meant
Meant to be.
to be. And I always say
Love it.
Shawn is my hardcore like LA friends. Like ride or die. If I get on a flight and go to LA tomorrow, Shawn, hello. Guess who's coming? Like, no. Shawn is my
Yes.
people. I can't even.
Yes.
Anyways, but okay, next question.
Well, let's talk about how you segued into the documentary world,
Right.
the unscripted world, because and then we'll go into more stuff there.
Yeah, so I was an assistant for a really long time. I got to be honest. Like I feel like, too long, but probably right on
Mm.
time in the story of it all, in the grander scheme of it all. But so I went to, I was showrunner assistant and line producer assistant and first team assistant. That's a actor assistant. And, like creative producer assistant and
Mm.
director's assistant. Like I was assisting everyone on every single thing. And got to a point where I was like, I am gonna only work on first season shows with the hope that I could be promoted in second season.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
if I put in the work and do all of that. So while I was in the process of working on these scripted shows, all 1 hour dramas, um, I had met the director for the PBS documentary for Hollywood's Architect. And she had a sizzle at the time. She showed the sizzle, super random. I actually met her at the home of the producer for Mad Men. We were all there at the same time.
Wow.
Like just coincidence. She happens to show this sizzle. I was like, wow, why don't I know who he is? Like,
Mm, mm.
I know I'm a first gen kid and I'm really like seeped into my culture, but I also invested a lot of like time as a kid. And most of my plays were about, Black American culture and the history here and what that, they don't teach you in school. So you got to go in other places. So like went in
Mhm.
all of the other places and I was just like, how do I not know this person? And I remember audibly saying, man, I would love to work on something like that. Or I wish I could work on something like that. And the producer that I had worked with on Mad Men comes behind me and he whispers, you can just ask her. And I was like, oh, duh.
Wow.
Right.
Oh, asking you shall receive.
Yes,
Asking you shall receive.
absolutely.
So when I met her, I was just kind of interning for her, gave her a few hours of research here and there. And then because it took some time, it took many years to get the film done. I went from
Mhm.
intern to associate producer on the film and went
Yes.
from a few research projects to like booking major talent that was going to appear in the doc and like setting up the day and scheduling the day and like sticks down by this and we got to be out by this and all this stuff. So I was doing that and working on scripted at the same time. I was working on my
Okay.
shows at the same time.
Yeah.
So it all kind of came to an end around, end of 2019. At the top of 2020, I knew the film was coming out, the documentary was coming out. It was my director's passion project that became my passion project. I was so pleased to be a part of it. So I had just wrapped on Free Ray Shawn, which was for Quibi. came and went. Quibi came and went, child. It was so big.
Yes, Quibi.
Quibi.
Yeah, Google Quibi, guys. We don't have time to talk about
Yes, we
Quibi.
won't do it.
Right. Just look it up. Just look it up.
Quibi. Very quick. Very quick bites. Yes.
Super quick.
Not even a...
R.I.P. R.I.P. Quibi.
R.I.P. R.I.P. to Quibi. I had wrapped a Quibi something. I had wrapped for Ray Shawn. 2019, and so at the top of 2020, I knew the film was coming out, and we all know what 2020 looked like and all what happened. But Hollywood's Architect premiered February of 2020, so that was still great and amazing. And we had a screening. Again, the film is about an architect, so we had a screening in New York at an architecture firm, and then we flew to Chicago to have a screening, which was great. And literally a few days later, after landing from Chicago, the world shut down. I was like, oh, well, there. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So Shrlyn,
but folks had time to watch the documentary.
Yes, they
did.
The
timing was good to watch the docs. We all got into some docs during that time.
Yes, 100%. Mm-hmm.
So Shrlyn, now I'd like to ask you, we have a segment called financials. So documentary work is different from scripted, and usually length of time is very vast, and it's not like, a year or a few months like television or features. So can you tell us, like, ballpark, if you feel comfortable, like the documentaries you worked on, like what were the budgets like, if you feel comfortable, and also like what the different positions, ballpark, the salaries, like the director, the producers, associate producers. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah,
approximately.
Let's do approximate. Because here is the truth, and because I'm still in this position and in this place, and I can't wait until I'm out of this place of constantly negotiating and constantly pushing back on and advocating for yourself and constantly just inquiring, like, are you sure there's not more for this or that? So there hasn't been an end to it, for at least for me personally. I think I'm definitely still wrapped in talking about it and pushing back and asking for more. But so I'll share this for Hollywood's Architect. That was kind of a fundraising, writing grants kind of process. So it was, as the money came in, we would film. So it took some time, just because sometimes you got a big grant or something sizable where you could kind of get a day or two in, and other times like you didn't. And, I know my director, as it sometimes happens in doc, also sacrificed a lot of her own to make sure that the film was done and completed. I could speak a little more on the doc series that See Her Multiplicity that I did about the women of color and that and code switching, because so that series was actually for Health magazine. It was very interesting how I crossed into that. Syracuse alum was looking for a producer, met him, it went well, here I am. Okay, content for Health magazine, but was still going to do it in the most cinematic, best storytelling way that I could do it. And so overall that budget was $100,000 or like $100,000 or $110,000. And I will say, I feel like our DP, camera, everyone kind of came in at rate, maybe slightly under, because even though we're, docs, or the docs I work, they're not union, we're still not trying to, disrespect people, too much, and still kind of honoring like what works. In television, directors get this episodic rate, and even though this was a episodic doc, that the director gets a flat fee for their services. And initially I did end up getting a flat fee for my services, but the project took too long, so then it became it became something else, and now you have to go back to the table and talk about it, right? So that's what I mean when I say, like, it kind of doesn't end. You are always having to be mindful about how much you're putting out, how much work you're putting out, and what was initially promised, like, hey, this project will take from here to here. And when it starts to exceed that, or once you get into production and things happen, right? Like on that series, one of the characters that I thought we could film couldn't do it anymore. So
Mm,
now that delays it. Now I have to find someone
yeah.
else. I've got to interview someone else. I have to see if they work, et cetera, et cetera. So with that process, it pushed it a little bit. And, editing, you always think is going to be a certain amount of time. It don't be that. So, you know, so with all of that, it kind of pushes and extends it. And now I'm back at the table and I'm asking for more. So I will say that look, in the doc space, there are ranges, um, and it just varies on what you're on and how long the
Mm,
project is. I think if you're an AP on a doc, um, somewhere between 1700 and maybe you could get to 18, an 1850
mm-hmm,
kind
mm-hmm.
of range. And boy, I mean, it's like I'm also hoping it's more than that at this point. But
Right, right.
and I would say like some of the producer fees are ranging between like 2000 to 2300,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and then the producers above that, you can now get into maybe like your 28s, your 3 grand a week, stuff
Yeah,
like that. And then I think the directors is like, it's per, who are you, what have you worked on, what are you bringing, what's your rate. Directors are kind of going to be something different a little bit. And again, it's like, don't take it for Bible, take this as just a suggestion, because you can always
absolutely.
negotiate
And to
more.
your point, though, the negotiation is always there. Having
Always.
said that,
Hmm.
with your awards, the fact that you paid your dues as an assistant in every single department, you should be at the point, folks should be offering you money. So we're going to put that out into the
Okay.
universe. At this
Okay.
point, okay, you will take that. You will take that,
I
right?
will. Hello.
Thank you,
Okay.
and thank you for sharing that too, because yes, our point is right. We even if we know a starting point, even if we have a ballpark, we know what our worth is. We know what other people are getting. It gives us the opportunity to negotiate. We could say, actually, you could say, I consulted my friend, but you just listened to the episode on Sister
Yes,
Brunch. I
correct.
consulted my friend who said, right, and,
Correct.
and she has a Gracie and an Emmy, so Hey, sisters and siblings. I mean, come on now. For real. Like, do we not have the most amazing guest this season? Shawn and I are having a blast. So is Tasha. Tasha hides from y'all, but she's our amazing producer too. And we're just having such a great time. If you love what you're hearing, then please do us a big favor. Subscribe to Sister Brunch on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review. Tell your friends, your colleagues about it. And while you're doing that, head on over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/True Media, and subscribe there as well. Leave us a comment. Tell us what your favorite brunch food is and what you like to drink, or what advice you might give to your younger self. We also always appreciate your reviews on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, and share, share, share. All right, without further ado, let's get back into this amazing conversation. Um, so let's transition into our segment, Let's Talk Tech. And so we want to know, and especially because we've not been graced with documentary producers enough for sure.
Mhm.
And so we want to know a term, concept. It even could be a piece of equipment, something that you use that maybe somebody not in your world, maybe they wouldn't know that thing or they'd have to learn it.
Okay. So the first thing that's coming to mind uh, is a paper edit, which was new to
Great.
me
Yes.
coming
Okay.
into doc. Like I had spent some time. Thankfully, I had bosses that allowed me to be in the edit bay or part of the edit process on the episodic side. So I saw that and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this before. I don't know what this is. Um, but the paper edit is essentially, it is kind of like what it sounds. It is really building the story on paper to
Mm.
hand over to to the editor to try to get the story together. So,
Mm.
for example, um, on See Her Multiplicity, that was not a paper edit. Like, the editor just had the raw material and would put together what she thought was best. And sometimes I was like, oh, this is great. Like, tighten here, da da da. And it was really simple. For one episode in particular, I was like, thank you. I see where you were going, but this isn't it. We're going to restructure the whole thing because I feel like we're missing the
Mm.
tone. So that is like, I'm also okay with that, with working that way. But recently, when I did High on the Hog for Netflix, it was like, okay, we're gonna start with a paper edit, and I was like, what is that? And it is and I'm not even gonna lie to you because I forgot the program, but it is
Oh, is there
really,
a program? There's like a.
there is a
Mhm.
program, and I should have
Okay. We'll
looked that
find
for
it
you.
and we're gonna
Yes,
dub you with
yeah,
AI. We can just dub your voice, pretend like you
perfect.
said it, and we're not gonna
I
do
love the
that.
tech
We're not gonna
segment.
no
Okay. Oh,
no deep
darn.
fakes. Yes. Yes.
But it really was kind of like paper clipping, like taking a virtual post-it and saying like, I want the
Hmm.
character saying this here, and then it goes into this segment, and it goes into this segment, and goes into this segment, and then the editor can respond and kind of, lengthen those
Nice.
post-its and put in between. And so I hadn't heard of that before, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's really interesting. And I think, just depending on who you are and just your process, and that could work really, really well for you, or it would be just like, hey, here's the raw, just
Mm,
start throwing it together and tell me what you think. So it's
love
up
it.
to you, I think, or if you're hired by a job, whatever their process is. But that was a new term that I definitely learned.
So
All right.
helpful. Paper edit.
Paper edit.
Mm.
We
Okay.
learn something
Okay.
new every day. Okay, so
Yes.
now, Sherlyn, we have a signature question that we ask all of our Sister Brunch guests.
Hmm.
And so you have been to an actual Sister Brunch before.
You have?
She
Oh,
has.
nice. We haven't been to one
Yes.
together then, have
No,
Yes.
we?
no, no,
No, no,
What?
you
no.
Okay,
weren't there, Fanshen.
we have
No.
to
No,
change that. We
you
will
weren't
have to,
at
okay.
that one.
Okay.
And so imagine, Sherlyn, that you're sitting down to a Sister Brunch with your younger self, either, elementary age, high school, college age. Um, what are you both eating? What are you both drinking? And what do you tell young Sherlyn?
Oh, so good. Okay, so yeah, we're definitely both eating French toast with powdered sugar, bananas on top, and drinking a mimosa. In that sense, I haven't grown up at all. It's it's exactly the same.
Nice.
That's, that
And clearly
remains my
you've
go-to.
chosen your younger self over 21.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah,
the
okay. Oh,
mimosas,
Yes.
but she could have a virgin mimosa. I don't know
Very
if there's
good.
such a thing, but
Yes.
yeah.
Over
orange
Yes.
21.
juice,
Good.
Over
orange
21.
juice.
Yes, orange
Good.
juice, right? College version, the college version.
Yes, yes.
So I'm still eating and drinking the same thing. What am
Yes.
I? What am I telling myself? I guess one of the things I wish that I grabbed a hold of sooner was that, like, it'll work out. Hold on a second, right?
Mm,
The freelance life is very hard. It is really, really hard.
yeah.
Particularly now, I acknowledge, like,
Yes.
post the strikes, like, I was affected by, there's a ton of people, like, it just didn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are, what your rank is, what your title, like, the industry has evolved, it has changed, it's hard. It was hard before, it's really tough now.
Yeah.
So there is some grace to give yourself in that in between, in that tough moment. I feel like in
Mm,
between gigs, it would just be like, I'm never gonna work again. And it's just like, you will work again. You don't know the time. You don't, those are the things that are outside of your control. But you can continue to put the work in, meaning you can continue to network, you can continue to follow up on emails, you can continue to, set a reminder to text someone, or like whatever that looks like for you. But it'll be all right. Like, I used to tell myself, like, later on, a difference a day makes, because you could
Mm.
be like struggling and we've all been there at different times, right? Like struggling, having the hardest time,
Yes.
and then
Mm-hmm.
in one day, with one phone call
Yes.
about that one job, working with that one person, uh, the difference a day makes. So
Mm.
Facts.
and when you get to the end of that day, when you realize, like, okay, it wasn't today, cool, it could be tomorrow.
Mm.
It's not tomorrow, cool, it could be next week, right? Like,
Yes.
and so I think that's one of the things that I got to that point eventually. But in the early days, it's really like you're just in
Mm.
constant panic, I think, sometimes, and you're
Yeah.
just really freaking out all the time. And trying to, like, who can I impress? What can I do? What can I It's like it's
So much.
coming. You don't, be yourself, like, as
We
early as
should
possible.
mention, I'm sorry, Shrlyn, but we should
Yeah.
mention too, because you're talking about, it's your network, it's your community, it's people, you then could be that model for somebody else who's having that rough day, and they look at where you've been and what you've done. And we should mention Hivemind Unified, because I just realized we didn't talk about it. Do you want to
Yes.
talk about
Yes. Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes.
Okay. So the Hivemind Unified was actually founded by my very, very dear friend, Karima B. We went to Syracuse together. So we were in film school, and I was the producer of her thesis film, which then became my thesis film. And we still work together. I was story producer on her short film that just was one. Best doc at a film festival here in New York, like literally last week.
Yes.
So that's really awesome. I mean, so we're still in each other's network, but when COVID happened, it dawned on her of just like, wow, if you have just graduated from film school, how do you get connected? How do you
Yeah.
grow? How do you learn? So much of this industry is networking. So how would that happen? So she reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I want to give back in this way. Are you down for the cause?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." And so, because I was always the person on set anyway. Like, if I was an assistant and the office PA came to set and they had never been to set, well, then come stand by me. Like,
Ah,
come observe.
so good. Yes.
If you get in trouble,
Yes.
we get in trouble. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And the
Yes.
and the likelihood they're
Yes.
gonna yell at me is probably a little lower. So it's fine. I'll just tell
That's
them I asked you to stay
beautiful.
here. Like, because
Yes.
you
Yes.
you learn by hearing and by observation, by like testimonies and all of these things. And so it started by an Instagram page. So we're at the Hive Mind Unified, so you can follow us there. And then it evolves into like online workshops. So you can, tap into our workshops, and you can hear from development executives. You can hear from directors. Like, I had a
Mhm.
director from Raising Dion on, who also
Yes.
was the creator of the show, and Dennis Liu, incredibly talented, come and talk to the audience,
Mhm.
and, workshops on how to successfully be a PA. Like, what does that look like? What is the terminology?
Yes.
Where I'll share my
Love
screen.
it.
I'll show you a call sheet from a show that I've worked on.
Yes.
Imagine your first, like, remember your first day on set. This is so jarring. What is the language? What is the lingo? What's a day out of days? What's a one line? How do you read a one line? You know what I mean? That will get
Yes.
you tripped up
Yes.
on your first day.
Yes. Yes. And you're gonna feel like you're supposed to know, but this
Right.
way you walk on and you know already. You've
You
had some
know.
exposure to it
Yes. And even if you've
in a group of
forgotten,
other people. Yeah.
yes, even if you've forgotten, like,
Mm.
oh my God, what did Sherlyn say on that workshop? Yeah, you at least have heard the language before.
Yes.
So you don't feel as scared. And so we have, like, post COVID, finally have in-person events now. Like,
Yes.
we're at a local
We're gonna
camera
do a little
house
Sister
and stuff.
Brunch,
We're gonna do a
Hive Mind Unified.
crossover.
We absolutely,
Y-
absolutely planting the
Yes.
seeds. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. We would love to. Yes.
Yes. So it's been great to give back in that way and have people kind of
Yeah.
come back and, like repeat offenders at our workshop. And of course, if we hear of a job, and we think of someone who's been to our workshops, it's like, hey, are you interested in this? Or, we'll shoot you an email. So it's like, if you plant into our community, then we will return. And once we hear of something and know of something, we'll absolutely tell you. So so follow us at the Hivemind Unified, visit our website. There's a resources page on there where you could kind of click through and find like writer workshops and production design if you're interested, and like all of that stuff. So like, no matter what you're into, tap in and say hi.
All right. Shrlyn, real quick before you go, can you let us know where, like, High on the Hog is on Netflix, right?
Yes.
Right.
So season 2 of High on the Hog's on Netflix.
Okay, and so the other shows, like the Paul Williams documentary, where can our audience view that?
Yeah,
PBS.
So it's on PBS SoCal. I would hurry. I hope it's still on. It because it was on. They liked it a lot. It was only supposed to be on for a year, so it was extended year after year after year. So and they might have taken it down.
Okay, we're gonna look for it. We're gonna search
please.
for it. Add a link. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But otherwise,
Shrlyn, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Shawn. No, I was just gonna say,
go ahead.
Otherwise, you can find me at noshrlyn.com, and that's it. That's me.
Shrlyn, now we got to know Shrlyn a little bit.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Shrlyn. This has been great.
Thank you.
Truly.
This has been
Shawn,
unbelievable.
I am a fan of the both of you. Obviously, you know this. I'm a fan of Sista Brunch. I was listening to Sista Brunch season 1. It didn't matter what position you were talking to. All the information was valuable. I think if you're a constant student and you're open to learning, it's like, I want to know what the camera PA is doing, because I haven't been one, like it doesn't matter who it is or what rank or that doesn't matter. So I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I'm so honored to be on. Thank you so much.
We are so honored to have you and to finally make this happen. Yay. And truly so much more to come. I'm confident in that. Just collaborations, as I said, and watching you continue to thrive and get paid what you deserve to get paid.
Okay.
And not know your worth anymore. Not even. Yeah, go ahead.
Our audience needs to remember, know your worth. Know your worth.
Know your worth. Yes.
And a closed mouth never gets fed. Closed mouth never gets fed.
Said exactly that. Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. And that producer whispered it in your ear at the Mad Men party, right?
Yes.
Like, you can make that happen, So be that person also for somebody else, and that's how we pass it on. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Season 6 of the Sista Brunch podcast. Remember to support us by subscribing, reviewing, commenting, and sharing with your friends and colleagues.
We appreciate your follows on Instagram at Sista Brunch Podcast, where you can also find your community of Black women and gender expansive people. We post different industry opportunities. We keep you updated on past guests. You can watch, comment, share, and subscribe to our videos at youtube.com/TrueJaloMedia. And we're also on TikTok at TrueJaloMedia. Sista Brunch is brought to you by True Jalo Productions and was created by Anya Adams, Christabel Nsiabwadi, and me, Fanshen Cox.
Our producer for Season 6 is the fabulous Tasha Rogers. Sista Brunch is recorded on the unceded territory of the Tongva and the Chumash people in Los Angeles, California. Thank you for listening, following, reviewing, and subscribing, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.